about yourself.
Yep.
All right. Welcome, episode 39 of the Been There, Done That podcast. Sean Bell, thank you very much for joining me. How are you doing today, mate?
I'm well, thanks, Matt. Thanks for having me on.
No worries. And just to get started, I had my girlfriend obviously is a bit of a pregnancy brain, or what do they call it? Pregnancy brain, I think they call it. And I told her numerous times who I'm having on today and all of that. And when I was setting up, she asked me yet again who I'm having on, and I said Sean Bell, and she goes, "What does he do for the third time?" And I said, "Well, since I've already told you three times, I can't. It's such a big body of work and so little time to tell you." I just said, "You run a lot." Is that fair enough explanation?
That is a very fair explanation. Yeah.
So just for anyone who doesn't know who you are or what you do, or just give us a little bit of a elevator pitch, probably a 1 minute little paragraph on who you are and what you've been doing.
Yeah, sure thing. Thank you, mate. So, yeah, I'm an ultra marathon runner, a keynote speaker, and an entrepreneur. But yeah, what we're here, I guess we'll mostly be talking about running. So, I'm training currently to run from Cairns to Melbourne for Make a Wish, which is 28 days
Jesus.
from today, which is so exciting.
Wow.
So, that is Monday, April 11. I start that journey, and that campaign's called 60 for 60 for 60. And what that means is running on average 60 kilometers a day for 60 days to raise $60,000 for Make a Wish. So it's a very, very exciting journey. Slightly terrifying, but also very exciting, and one that I've been preparing for about 5 years for now. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. I've done a number of feats, which I'm sure we'll delve into as well.
It's crazy because one of the things that I love people getting on this podcast is to kind of get. Or what intrigues me most about the people I have on the podcast is that people who do extraordinary things and then able to push through the mind and get through the body, which obviously is probably one of the biggest things. And then 60 for 60 for 60 is obviously one of those things. How does it kind of, if you had to start from like a real low base and build up to it, because obviously you don't just jump into it straight away. Where was your first introduction into the longer form of running?
Yeah, my first marathon was October 2017, the Melbourne Marathon. And I think for a lot of people, the marathon is that bucket list item. And it can go for many people one of two ways. You either tick it off and you're happy, you've achieved your goal, which is amazing in itself, or it's the start of your journey. And I've met a lot of people who run that first marathon, and then that's just kickstarted a ultra running career. And so that was what happened with me. I ran my first marathon October 2017, absolutely loved it. And prior to that, I'd always been a footballer. So I played just
Okay.
Aussie rules football for a local club here called the Vermont Eagles in the Eastern Football League in Victoria. And yeah, I loved my footy, played from when I was 6 till I was 19 years old. But it was really just achieving that first marathon. And then I was like, you know what? I love that so much. This is what I'm doing now. And so from that finishing, I guess from when I crossed the finish line, I was like, this is what I'm doing. And I decided that I'm going to get a coach and I'm going to go all into running and see what I can achieve with that. And then it was 15 months later of hard training, but 15 months later, I towed the start line for my big campaign, which was 50 marathons in 50 days.
Oh my goodness. So your first marathon, did you just kind of go in underprepared, like you didn't train real? You just came off the base of your footy training?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, to be honest, because so 2017, I was in the under 19s and I was the captain of our footy team, and we were on top of the ladder. We actually went undefeated, didn't lose a game, ended up winning the premiership, which was amazing. However, it put me in a pretty tough position. And the reason I say that is because I have always loved footy. And yet, for some reason, even though when we weren't losing games, I wasn't as fulfilled playing footy that year as I had been in previous years. So on the weekend, I was like, if I wasn't playing footy, say we had a bye round, for example, I'd go out and do a long run. And that put me in a really tough
Uh-huh.
position because I'm the captain who should be, you know,
Oh,
fully focused on footy, telling everyone to dive into footy. And when we had a bye round, or I remember we finished on top of the ladder, so we had the first week of finals off, and then we started our campaign in the second week of finals, and I went and did a
yeah.
25K long run because I knew that 3 weeks after the season I was doing the Melbourne Marathon. So I did a 20K run, a 25K run, and a 32K run, but that was it in prep for the Melbourne Marathon outside of your normal weight training and I guess running that you're doing through football.
Did you found that they were competing against each other? Because obviously, well, you might want to know this. So I have a background in strength and conditioning, and then you got those longer distance running, and then you got the shorter based of football. Did you feel like they were conflicting each other in your, I guess, your physiology?
A little bit, not as much as I thought I would have thought. And I think what I found very different to where I'm at now is I was a lot heavier then. I had that real footy build. Lived in the gym like so many footy boys do, and was very upper body dominant. And my body has changed a lot over the past few years of running. So I think there was some things that were probably beneficial. The short sprints and high intensity efforts that you do at football. Well, that helps you maintain your pace with running. So look,
Right.
that was beneficial. I think having a bit of speed work in there. And my first marathon, I went in and was able to do that in 3 hours 28, which is just under 5 minutes a
Awesome.
k. So like I was absolutely stoked to do that with the little amount of prep that I did in terms of specific running. Yeah.
And one of the things that makes it's even crazier for me to even fathom because I don't. Well, my longest running, I do like shorter based interval sort of stuff like 1 minute run, 2 minute runs. But being able to consistently hold, running for 25K straight. Was there an issue there for you? Because obviously a lot of footy running, but then transitioning into that longer runs. Did you have a mental block they had to kind of break through, or was it just you always found longer distance running easier?
Yeah, I think I've always enjoyed long distance running, nothing of that length. So 2016, a year prior, I did a 15K fun run, and I think I really loved that experience. And growing up, running was always something I enjoyed, but I think more so, like most people, it was just something to clear my head, to get a bit of time by yourself, go out, feel creative. And for me, running at the time wasn't like it is now. I mean, now running's like a meditative experience. I'm sure you speak to any ultra runner, they'll say the same thing. But back then it was more just if I felt stressed, if I felt sad, let's put the shoes on, go for a run. And so it was really just that tool to change my state. And what happened was, so as I said, I played from when I was 6 until I was 19 years old at the Vermont Eagles. And 2016, a year prior to that 2017 season, and the year of the marathon, I lost a footy friend and teammate. He was 18 years old, healthy, went to bed and didn't wake up. And to this day, they still don't know why or how he passed away. He just went to bed healthy and didn't wake up. So that
Wow.
absolutely crushed me and my teammates, changed my entire life. And I think I started running more because of the sadness that came from that. And then what I found was that mental strength that you spoke about, I was able to actually hold on to running, 25 kilometers, 32 kilometers in the training runs, probably better than I would have thought. And I think it was largely due to thinking about my teammate and getting that extra inspiration.
Oh wow. So going on from there, you spoke about you had 50, was it 50 marathons in 50 days? Was that right?
Yeah, yeah. So,
So
as I said, the teammate I just spoke about, his name was Joey, and I
yeah.
it's surprising to a lot of people because we only knew each other for 9 months. It was his first year in our footy team in 2016, which means we would have met November pre-season of 2015, and then
Mhm.
he passed away at the end of July 2016. So I knew him for a period of 9 months. But I always say to people, it's not how long you know someone; it's about the impact they have on your life. And he was that
Mhm.
sort of guy, a very special person, and just huge smile, handshake for every single person he met. And we shared a love and a bond over the Richmond Footy Club. So that was
Wow.
80% of our conversations, the Tigers. And so it was yeah, very very tough to lose him, and I think it yeah had such an impact on my life.
So so you said you finished your first marathon and then you 15 months of training and then you
Yeah,
went in and you attacked the fifty marathons in 50 days. How much of
yeah.
a like value or sorry, we go from the start. The training, how much of your training changed from when you went into going for that? How much like how do you train to do 50 marathons in 50 days?
Look, heaps changed. So I was at uni as well, studying a Bachelor of Physical Activity and Health Science, and
Right.
in 2018, when I got really invested in running, would I live 21k from uni, so a half marathon distance away. So I drive to my mate's house the night before with my bag, laptop, change of clothes, food for the day. He'd take my bag on the train with him. He'd take 2 bags. I'd run 21k's to uni, have a quick shower, and go to class. And I'd do that 3 days a week. And that was just what I thought was what was required in order to run, what I was planning on doing, which was 50 marathons in 50 days. And then it wasn't until end of August 2018 that I reached out to a girl called Sam Gash. And any of your listeners that watch Survivor will know her. She's actually on Survivor right now. But she's an amazing ultra runner, ran across India for World Vision. And it was something like
Crazy.
77 marathons in 77 days. And so I'd listened to her on a few podcasts and absolutely loved her story. And I thought, I've got nothing to lose. She's done something similar to what I'm hoping to achieve. And I'm just going to ask her if there's any advice she can give me through social media. So I messaged her and was absolutely blown away by her response. So turns out she lived in the Dandenong Ranges, which is 20 minutes from me. And
Oh,
so she's like, 2 weeks later, let's
wow.
grab a coffee. We had a 2-hour coffee. She's become this amazing mentor for me. And she said, look, I'm not a coach, but I do know people who can coach you and get you prepared for this sort of thing. So she hooked me up with 2 guys, Jace Cronshaw and David Jones, who,
Yeah.
coached me for the next 16 weeks. It was a hard 16-week block before the 50 marathons in 50 days. So they didn't have a heap to work with, but my training changed immensely. So it went from me thinking, oh, it's all about running long every single day. And, your joints get so sore trying to run long every single day. And I was thinking, if I'm trying to do that for an event, that's how you need to do it in training. But it's not necessarily the case. These boys opened
Mm.
me up to, heaps more strength and conditioning, like lots of strength work in the gym, also hill sprints and tempo runs and fartlek sessions and interval sessions,
Mm.
all different types of running that I've never done before, with periods of really hard training and then periods of recovery in there. Because as I said, I was just running long every single day. There was no recovery happening. And it allowed my body to,
Wow.
get really strong and prepare for such a big campaign.
So you had rest days. So was it 4 days of training, 3 days rest, or was it 2 days on, 1 day off, and just like cycle like that?
So my even now, my typical week will look something like a Monday will be like a quality session. So it might be a tempo run, for example, and I might do 3 8K runs at a really hard pace, let's say 80%, with a 2 minute rest, and you'll do that. So 3 sets of 8Ks. So it's a 24-kilometer session, but at intensity. And so tempo is that zone of sort of 70 to 80%, and it's often described as comfortably hard. It's like if you and I were running, we couldn't have a
Yeah.
conversation with each other, but we could, say 1 or 2 words. We're really working in that tough zone, but it's a zone that we can sustain for a period of time. So yeah, that's like a Monday, and that might be a Monday morning. I'll do that, followed by leg weights in the evening. So it's a huge day, and
Oh,
then I'll have Tuesday as just yoga, and that might be a 30-minute session. And I'm always asking my coaches, am I doing enough? But they're like, yes, you have to have
okay.
really hard training and then periods of recovery. And then the Wednesday would be a double day again. Thursday would be a light run. Friday would be often yoga and mobility again, and then a really long run on a Saturday and a recovery day Sunday. So you can see there's really 3 or 4 days of hard training with 3 days of recovery, and allows my body to put out 80 to 100K weeks of training, with 2 to 3 heavy leg and core sessions in there as well. And yeah, just I think the extra periods of recovery allow me to keep getting better.
Mhm. Is the yoga something that you've put in like yourself? Is that a personal preference in terms of doing something instead of ice bath or saunas? Is the yoga in there for a specific reason?
Yeah, they program yoga. My coaches, they program Yin Yoga. So Yin Yoga is where you hold a stretch for about 5 to 7 minutes. It is
Wow,
tough, but it's
intense.
meant to be, really, really good for runners because it can loosen up your muscle fascia. And so like
Mm.
it's definitely helped me. I think, yeah, I was like so many runners taking yoga and mobility for granted. I think you don't get the same endorphins, you don't get the same amazing workout feeling that you do get when you've done a run or even a gym session. But you've got to be diligent, you've got to do it. And I know I've listened to a couple of your podcasts now, and you talk about Goggins. And if you've read Goggins' book, how he talked about at the end, how his body was literally broken from a lifetime of training and not enough stretching. And it is so important. And I think running is a holistic approach that I didn't realize that you can't just run. It's running, it's strength training, it's yoga, and all of that as well.
with with the stretches, is it with yoga? Sorry, is it targeted towards hips, like mainly hips and lower body, or is it a full
Yeah.
total body experience as well? Yeah,
Yeah. Mostly lower body for sure. Yeah.
yeah. Have you had any injuries up to this point in your career?
Uh, Yeah, I have had some, but nothing too serious.
Yeah, right.
So 2019, I ran about, I think it was 4,000 Ks for the year, but that was the 50 marathons in 50 days. 12
Jesus.
weeks later, I raced across Bali, which was a 84-kilometer ultra marathon to put kids through school as part of the Bali Hope Ultra for the Bali Children Foundation, which was an amazing event. 20 runners come together from around the world and to raise money to put kids through school. So collectively, we raised 165K, which put 460 kids through 6 years of school. And yeah, it was one of the
Wow.
best weeks of my life. So any ultra runners out there looking to give back and I guess use your passion for an amazing cause, that's one that I can highly recommend for an event for you. Did that one, followed that up with just 8 weeks after that with another 24-hour run. So it was a big year, 2019. And then I got injured.
Wow.
And what happened was, even though I was able to achieve 50 marathons, 50 days, I had never, ever been coached by a local running coach. So these coaches that I was talking about, Jason, DJ, they're online. They live in Sydney. And so they were just programming me, but no one had ever seen my running technique. And I had that
Uh,
massive overstride. I had was landing way outside of my body. I had a cadence of about 150 steps a minute. Like my technique was at a heel strike. It was very, very poor compared to how it is now. And I think running technique is a very, very important factor. And, I think any of your listeners that are wanting to get into running, save yourself time and health. You might not get injured by going to a running coach early. Make those changes. One, you'll get faster. Two, you'll be able to run longer and it'll feel easier. And three, most importantly, you're less likely to get injured. So I had a peroneal muscle and tendon injury after my first 24-hour run, which may have happened anyway. You are running, I think, around 170 kilometers in that 24-hour period. Um, However, I think making changes with a local running coach, I haven't had many injuries since, and it's been pretty special.
I want to get to that running stuff, but before we do, you had the fifty marathons in 50 days, and then was it 12 weeks off, and then you ran an ultra marathon in Bali. Is how do
Yeah.
you like? Well, for me, and for example, for myself, after one running session, I don't want to run again for 2 weeks. How do you kind of you finish that, and then is there a period of recovery, and then get yourself fresh again to go back into the running? Because I guess you already have the base of training under your belt that you don't need to keep training at a high level. Do you come off the back of that, or do you have to go through another period of a small block of training?
No, you definitely need to keep up your training. Your training just changes slightly. So,
Right.
my coaches, I mean, and they coach me in a way that's tailored programming. So, Bali is about 2,000 meters of elevation as well, and so there's a fair bit of hiking involved. A lot of ultra running actually is power hiking. And I want to
Okay.
quickly mention that because my first ever ultra was a 60K run before I had a coach. And I think, an ego thing. I was like, I'm going to run the whole way. No matter what, I'm running the whole way. There's people next to me hiking at the exact same pace as what I'm trying to run up the hill, but I'm exerting a lot more energy. And this guy's like to me, mate, just walk with me. Like I'm keeping up with you. And I smiled at him and said, I promised
Mm.
myself I'd run the whole way. But yeah, hiking is a big part of it. But no, I think, yeah, it's been like after the 50 and 50, I had about a week off and then it was back into it, but at Probably the first week or so was at a reduced intensity. And then it was picking it up again. It was maybe a higher intensity session, but lesser volume. But definitely it was still a 12-week block to prepare for the Bali Hope Ultra as well.
And then, so once you got your running coaches, was there? How do you kind of work through your running technique? Was it they video you while you're in training, and then it was you go back and view the footage, and they'll pick up pieces of where you needed to work on, and then was there drills based on what you needed to work on?
They do some of that now. However, no, it is quite hard to change someone's technique
Mm,
from an online
yeah,
platform. I think when you're learning how to run with this like new technique, really ultimately you're unlearning what you know to then relearn. So it's a real process, and it's something that you can really only do face to face. So I just found another local running coach to me who was
gotcha.
awesome, and worked with her for about 4 months. And I don't think you even need to work with a coach that long, but obviously I'm very invested in my training, and I wanted to make absolute sure that this was going to be the best thing that I could do. And yeah, as I said, very few injuries since then, only very tiny things, and like bursitis in my foot and that sort of thing that is just joint inflammation. But yeah, been able to do a number of feats since 2019.
And we've spoken a lot about the training and recovery. How about your nutrition? Have you had to get any guidance on what you need to fuel yourself for these training for the training sessions and as well as the races?
Yeah, definitely. Look, I work with a sports dietitian, Chloe McLeod. She is amazing. Verdi Nutrition Co. Her company is called, and she basically I normally only work with her during events. So 50 and
Right.
50. I mean, if you're going to run 50 marathons in 50 days, you can't get your nutrition wrong, because if you get that wrong, the next day is affected. And
Mm,
so, like, you've got to eat well, but also a big one is just making sure you're getting enough in. You're expending so much energy, you've got to be able to replace that. And so, how do you replace that? Because I think anyone that listens to this, they don't even have to necessarily be a runner. But if you do a really, really hard training session and you haven't eaten anything sort of during that, and sometimes you get to the end of the run and you just, or the event, and you just don't want to eat, like it's really tough. So for me, it was a conversation with her of, okay, I'm going to call that campaign Jog for Joey. So it was running at a slower pace than normal. So I could actually eat
mhm.
on the run and make sure that I could get a lot of volume in. And that'll be the same as the 60 for 60 for 60 that's coming up soon. So I don't work with her on a day-to-day basis, but I think I've learned a lot from
Okay,
her
okay.
when I work with her in events, and overall just try and eat really well, lots of whole foods.
So it's so crazy because especially in that the 50 right 50 marathons 50 days it's it would almost be difficult to even plan plan your meals and then like you finish your race and then cook something up and then have to race again the next day. Was there lots of smaller meals, easy to digest foods in there to make it easier on yourself to not have to focus on cooking so much? Was just more about get the food in, recover, and then go out again the next day?
Yeah, very much so. I think a common breakfast I had, basically, just so I didn't get flavor fatigue, I alternated between two breakfasts. So one was a big smoothie and a bowl of oats, like porridge, which was massive. And then the other one was 7 Weet Bix and two
Yeah.
crumpets before I run. So that's a big breakfast before you go out and run. But the idea being get a fair bit in early, and take a little bit of time to warm up. So the 50 and 50 was January 4 to Feb 22nd, which is obviously peak summer
Oh wow.
in Australia at that time of the year. So
Yeah.
I went really early. I just got into routine of waking up at about quarter to 4, 4 a.m., and would have a big breakfast straight away, and then give myself about an hour and start running about 5 a.m., 5:15 a.m., and I'd finish the marathon by 9:15 or 9:45 a.m. So it was sort of, each one was between 4 and 4.5 hours. And as I said, at that slower pace allowed me to eat along the way. So during the run, I'd eat about, I don't know, 4 bananas, 2 Cliff Bars, and maybe 2 Gatorades. And that was during the run. And then at the end of it, come home, have 4 eggs on toast with mushroom, spinach, tomatoes, all that, and a big protein smoothie. So yeah, it's constant fuel.
Wow. And I mean, through the 50 days, was there a point of like mental fatigue? Like, how did you prepare mentally for that? You would have had to gone through. Surely it would have been ups and downs and all everything in between.
Yeah, definitely. On day 19 as well, I had a grade one tear to my VMO, so my right quad muscle, vastus medialis. And that was not ideal, but as I said, it was a minor tear. It was grade one. But it meant that I had to get physio 2 to 3 times a day and just strap it up with rock tape and slow down. So my marathons for that week blew out to about
Ah,
5 to 5.5 hours. I was very sore, sort of limping my way through it.
Oh,
But I said to myself, I'm going to do this no matter what. And you know what's amazing? I think it healed itself while I was still running. While I'm running a marathon a day, it came good. And marathon 25, I was back to about 4 hours 30, and I was like, here we go. So it's amazing what can happen. But I think, yeah, that was the biggest challenge I had physically. From a mental side of things, I think it was more. I actually created a list of 10 reasons why I must run 50 marathons in 50 days. And note the language there, must. And so I would look at this
yeah,
list every single morning, and I think it's so powerful when you can have a very strong reason why. And this is something that I share with students and corporate people when I speak as a keynote speaker. With a strong enough why, you will find a way. And I had this list, and it was like number one, to honor my friend and teammate. Number two, to raise money and awareness for the Compassionate Friends charity. Number three, to unite my community, all the way through to number 10, which was empower others to chase their dreams now. And so I would look at that list every single morning, which is why I can remember that so well. And that would just ultimately
that's right.
put me in that mindset to allow me to go, all right, here we go again. Yes, I know I'm sore. I know it would be better to roll over and go back to sleep or watch Netflix. But right now, I'm going to get up and remember what this is all for and just go through the routine. Start slow, build into it. Let's go.
It's wild because it's something that's because you had to have something in there like it's almost an affirmation. So you had to put it in and say, "I'm dedicating myself to this." How did you? If you realize that going in, that would be something that you need to do to kind of get through that.
Yeah, I think when you're really under fatigue, whether that's as an athlete or even, in a work environment, like you've got a lot going on. I think that you have to have other things to inspire you. And sometimes it's easy to forget. Goggins talks about that. It's like that. What's this reference? It's the cookie jar where you just forget how badass you are, in his words, at time when times get hard. And I think that's so true. I think your mind spazzes out, you want to quit. And I think if you can have any form of, for me, it was a list. For you, it might be
Mm,
quotes, mantras, whatever it is that can help bring you back to what you want to achieve and remind you of your reasons why. I think it's incredible when you have a strong enough why, you will find a way. And, I think the desire for me to honor my teammate was over and above the biggest thing. And I had a lot of his friends coming out and running with me every day, so that inspired me. It was like,
okay.
if I'm going to do this, I'm going to see some of his teammates. I've just got to suck it up. Some days it's going to hurt more than others, but let's do it. And ultimately, you do enjoy the journey. I think when everyone does something that's hard, that puts them outside of their comfort zone, it also helps you grow so much. You appreciate it. And what an amazing opportunity where, this is obviously 50 days in a row. We're talking Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And I had people running with me every single day, like people taking time out of their lives to come and run with me. That's not something that I take for granted. So it was a very special 50 days. And yeah, ultimately love the journey as well, which is what it's all about.
Were you able to, I guess, listen to podcasts while you were running? Like, what did you kind of in the actual the 5 hours or the 4.5 hours you were doing the runs, the marathons? Were you able to like? Did you listen to music to get you through, or did you listen to podcasts and use that as a motivational tool?
I did, yeah, I did. So I would set up my day. So it would be like, hey guys, no, what would I do? I'd post saying marathon 20 tick, these Ks done so far, this how many Ks to go. Thanks to everyone who came out and ran with me today. Tomorrow I'm going to be running. I'll meet you at the Vermont Football Club at 8 a.m. when I might have actually started my run at 6 a.m. So I might have already ran 15 to 20 Ks by myself just to be in my own head and not listen to anything if I didn't want to, or listen to some inspiring podcasts, audio books, or music. I just honestly, I would just do what I felt I needed on the day. And so I would always say, meet me around 8 a.m., which was perfect for other people because most people don't want to be running at 6 a.m. either. And it also gave me time to, go for that 15, 20 Ks by myself first. And,
Yep.
I would listen to some incredibly inspiring
No,
people
never heard
like
of him.
Samantha Gash, who I spoke about before. I listened to the Iron Cowboy. Are you familiar with the Iron Cowboy? Oh, mate, you will love him. I'm not even kidding.
Whoa.
Just last year,
Holy
ran
crap.
one. Oh, not even ran. Did 101 full distance Ironmans in 101 days. So yeah, he's like a world class athlete in America. And in 2016, he did 50 Ironmans in 50 days. So here's me doing 50 marathons in 50 days, and I'm running and telling myself, "Come on, dig deep here. You're only running like this is. I know it's tough. I know it's 42 kilometers, but in 4.5 hours, you're going to be done. You can recover." He's doing a 3.8K swim and a 180K ride on top of his run. So I think listening to those
That's
sort
wild.
of
So
stories
how about books?
definitely helped give
Do
me
you read any other
inspiration and
books
remind me
outside
that
of
this is
your own,
possible.
I know, the stuff you have to do for uni, but do you have any books that you've used to help yourself, I guess, on the mental kind of aspect of the running? Hmm.
Yeah, I think I'm
Yeah,
massive in the
that's fair enough.
personal development space. I'm an audiobook man. I can't sit still, so I find physical books really tough. I could probably count on
Right.
on with my fingers how many physical books I've read in my life, but audiobooks I try and get through one every 2 weeks at least. Between audiobooks and podcasts, I love them. I think there's so much value in them, and that way it allows me to listen when I'm running or when I'm driving. So
Hmm. Hmm.
um, audiobooks, probably my favorites. David Goggins, as you spoke about. I know he's spoken about a lot. It's incredible. And podcasts, I love Tim Ferriss. Samantha Gash podcast is great as well.
Yep.
And Kerwin Ray is another one I listen to. So not just all
Yeah.
about running, not just in the athlete space, but I think in business as well. So as I said, I started my first business or my company first 42K, which was a year ago and or nearly a year ago. So the reason I'm starting the run on Monday, April 11, is that's first 42K's first birthday. And that's a very special day to me because everything is connected. So first 42K was built out of COVID, like everyone else, being at home, bored, and in this hard Melbourne lockdown. And I had a lot more time on my hands. And I thought back to, it was probably one of the first times in life I really sat back and reflected because I had so much
Hmm.
time and all the people I've met, the journey of the 50 marathons, 50 days, the 24-hour runs, Bali Hope, all these things and what it's meant to me. And I remembered on day 49, I had three friends, Christine and Sarah, run their first marathon with me, and it was incredibly special. And I thought, that's something I want to do. I want to create a company to help other people run their first marathon. So I thought, well, how am I going to do this? That's not just that easy. So I am a running coach. I'm a qualified or level
Mm.
2 running coach. However, I also know that it requires a lot of work to set up a company. So I've got my own coaches who've helped me achieve all the feats that I have. They're business partners with me in First
Oh, wow.
42K. I've got my sports dietitian, Chloe McLeod, that I spoke about. She handles all the nutrition side of First 42K, and my yoga teacher, Kate, handles the yoga and mobility side. So it's sort of, I'm the
Wow.
face of the company and bringing my experts together in order to help others achieve their
Yeah,
first
right.
5K, 10K, 21K, and 42K, their marathons. So we see it as a journey towards your first 42K, and we wanted to have it that way so that we're not neglecting
Mm.
anyone. If you're just
That's
getting
wild.
into
Hey,
running, we'll
you've
be able to
almost
help
created
you
like a hub
get
or a
started. If you're already at a half
center of
marathon level,
excellence
we'll help you
almost.
accelerate
You
to a
have people
marathon.
can come in and they'll have everything there. Like you, the nutrition, you got the running coach, you got everything there. All they've got everything there at the disposal to be successful.
Yeah. No, definitely. It's as I said, I think it's a holistic approach, and without all of the experts that I've been able to tap into, I wouldn't be the runner that I am. And I ultimately found it challenging because a lot of people see what I do and they're like, I want to run like you. You're a great runner. Does your coach take anyone else? Can he coach me as well? And for a while there, I had to keep saying no, and it was annoying because he loves one on one, and like any one on one coach or personal trainer or anything like that, they're capped at how many people they can coach. But for him, it allows him to build those deeper relationships and tailor programming. And so I thought about it and I was like, well, if you're trying to run 50 marathons in 50 days, yes,
Mm,
you need a tailored program. But if you're trying to run a marathon or a half marathon or a 10 or 5K, it can be a generic program where we're there with support. So we still have weekly accountability calls to help. So every Tuesday night, me and the other coaches jump on a call to be able to support our athletes with whatever questions they may have. But I realized that a marathon, yeah, a little bit more generic, we can build something that will
mm.
allow more
That's
people to
interesting.
be able
Is
to
there something
access
that's
it
common
and ultimately
between
access his
people who
coaching,
start
just not in that one-on-one
start this
way.
journey? Is there something that challenges them the most, and what's the kind of advice that they need to receive, or that they need to kind of get them through the first kind of the roadblock that they encounter?
Well, I think everyone has different roadblocks. So, for some people, it might be identifying early what's their reason why. Like, why do you want to show up every single week and do a long run? Why are you going to commit to being uncomfortable? So that might be someone's roadblock. Another one might be that they've never done strength training before, and all of a sudden they're being exposed to strength training twice a week, and it's like, oh, this is quite terrifying for some people. So there's a number of different roadblocks. It really depends on the athlete and their background, I guess, and where they're at, how old they are, their running experience, everything like that. But yeah, that's why
What about
we're
yourself? What
there
was
and we have those
the
weekly
first
accountability calls so that we can
experience that you
support
had?
them,
I
whatever their
guess it would have been
roadblocks
earlier
are.
on in your career. What was the biggest roadblock you encountered?
Well, my very first marathon, I want to share this story because it is a very powerful one. And look, hopefully through our chat today, we can inspire some of your listeners to delve deeper into their running. And if any of the listeners have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them
Yep.
on social media. But I my first marathon, I hit the wall, which is very common, like everyone does, especially if you haven't done the training under coaching and all of that. And I hit the wall at the 38-kilometer mark. So it was actually a little bit later than when most people do. However, it was in the Melbourne Marathon up around the Shrine of Remembrance, and it's a gradual climb. And this lady, so I started to cramp up bad when I say hit the wall. I'm thinking mentally, I knew I was close, but I was like so sore. I had this cramp in my quad, and I'm thinking, am I going to be able to run another 4 kilometers? That is a long way, and especially with the crazy cramp. And what happened was, I'm
Wow.
not exaggerating this in the slightest. This man, another runner, puts his hand on my back, starts pushing me up the hill, saying, "Come on, mate, there's 4Ks to go. You've got this." And I said, "I'm cramping up. I don't know what to do." And so he realized that I was low on sugar, something I didn't realize. And so he ran over. There's this amazing mum and her kids handing out Zupa Dupas. And so he gets me a Zupa Duper, gives it to me. I smash it down, start to feel a little bit better. I sort of go over to this other lady, sort of walk over to her because I've still got this cramp, but I'm feeling a little bit better. Say, "Hey, that really helped me. Can I please have another one?" She gives me another one, smash it down again. The cramp disappears and I finish the marathon. And so, that showed me that running is ultimately a team sport. I think everyone says, oh, running's an individual sport. But when you hear stories like that, it just shows you the community behind running. And that's why I love running so much is, it is bringing people together. It's always them against them. Every time you run, it's you against you. However, people also want to challenge you and get the best out of you. And that's also why I love ultra running. You're racing people. Like, yeah, I want to beat you when I'm racing you, but ultimately, I want you to finish the run and have the best run of your life as well. So it's a crazy community running, and that story brings me a lot of happiness because it just, I always think about it, and I think had those two angels not been there, I may not have achieved that marathon. I could have gone back to playing footy. None of this might have never eventuated. So yeah, and I'll finish the story by saying now there's so many races and events that I can sign up to, but the Melbourne Marathon, I made a decision that that's one that I'll never run in. I want to pay it
Oh,
forward every time. So the last few years since then, I've gone to that exact spot
oh
and I
wow!
hand out
You
super
almost took the
dupers
words
to
out
the
of my mouth
runners,
because
so
I've
that
had
if they're
another
having if
ultra
they're
marathoner runner
cramping
on the
up, we can
podcast
get them
before, and
through.
she said that's just a massive community. Um, Even though it's such an individual sport, you're running and it's just you're in your own pain, but there's almost a shared experience because it's you're all experience the same pain. No, or it's all different perceived pain, but it's the same pain, and that almost bonds you all together. And then it's a community of that.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's so true. And that's why I think, I spoke briefly before about the Bali Hope Ultra. Doing experiences like that where everyone runs their own race. It's an 84-kilometer race across the entire island. So everyone's at a different pace and different fitness level coming into it and all of that. However, it's a community it's a team goal. We're all trying to raise as much money as we can for this charity, and we achieve the run. You celebrate every single person across that finish line, no matter what time they've done it in. And there was runners who had finished their 84 kilometers and went out to run the last 3K with other runners to get them home. Like, it's just an amazing experience, and that's what running can do and the community can do. And I think when you can come together at especially events, it's very special. One of my first 42K runners, or one of our first 42K runners, she said that she'd run a few half marathons before, didn't understand the attraction to events. Like, why do you need to pay that money to go and do an event? Just recently did a half marathon event and said, oh my God, I've been missing out, and just signed up to 4 or 5 straight afterwards. So I think to any runners listening to this,
For sure, for
definitely
sure.
build up
One of
and
the
get
things
to
that
that level of
interests me
being
a
able to
lot
do
about
events, and you'll
David
absolutely
Goggins, he
love it.
has this challenge, the 4 miles every 4 hours in 48 hours, and you've done that, correct? Yeah. Just
Yeah, I have done that. That was probably I've done one
yeah.
more race since then, but I was going to say that's the um, hardest thing I've done lately. So that was end of October last year. But because I've done multiple 24-hour runs before and all that sort of stuff, I sort of thought, with all respect to the challenge, it's already a massive challenge. But I thought, I want to push myself further. How can I do that? If the challenge is 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours, I was like, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to get faster every single run. So I started at a conservative pace, and by the end, so you do 13 6.4K runs, or 4 mile
Mm,
runs. So it's about 85 kilometers total over the 48 hours with broken sleep and all of that. But I ended up really pushing myself and really almost breaking myself.
Jesus,
My last run, the 13th run,
holy
was at
crap.
a 3:38 minute kilometer pace. So I was flying like as hard as I could. And yeah, so six did that around the track with a friend, and each run was
Wow.
getting quicker. So it wasn't even just that one. The one before that at
Mm,
350, the one before that at 357, the one before that at 402. And the accumulative fatigue of trying to back it up, 13 runs, very little sleep. And also, it's really hard to do a proper warm up before the run because you're trying to get as much sleep as you can in between. You've got such a
yeah.
small window. Let's say for most people, they might do that
Yeah.
6.4 Ks in 45 minutes. Well, that gives you 3 hours 15 until you have to run again. So for anyone not quite understanding that's listening, it's like my first run was at 4 p.m. My second run was at 8 p.m. My next run was at midnight. My next run was at 4 a.m. Next run was at 8 a.m. And I kept going like that until my 13th run was done. So I started at 4 p.m. on the Friday, and my last run was done at 4:25 p.m. on the Sunday after I finished that 13th run. So yeah, you've got for most people, let's say 3 hours 15 or so in
Yeah.
between, which you've got to eat, you've got to sleep. And it was tough. You really can't do anything else when you do that challenge. It's like this has got to be my sole focus for 48 hours. But I think if you're quite an accomplished athlete, if you've
That's
got the
definitely one that
base
interests me
underneath you,
because
it's an amazing
it's because
challenge
you
that
do have that element
will definitely have
of
a great impact on your
fatigue,
life, I'm
accumulative
sure.
fatigue, because you can't sleep, optimally. You can't warm up like you said, and then you have to make it. You have to turn it into a strategy, like how you're gonna tackle it. And you got the sleep. I didn't even think about the warm up like you mentioned, and even for you, which would have been something completely different. Was that how you were increasing the time or increasing your pace every time, so it was becoming shorter. You had more time to rest, but then you were cooling down for longer periods. So it wasn't like you were able to keep warm. What was the biggest issue? Was the fact that the sleep, was that what caught up with you in the end? How were you able to keep the pace?
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely sleep, mate. Sleep is so important. I so many people want to know, what recovery techniques do you do, especially like talking about the 50 marathons in 50 days. Was it ice baths? Was it getting massages? Was it foam rolling? Was it stretching? What were you doing? And yes, all of that plays a part, and I did all of that. However, the biggest thing is sleep. And I made sure that I was getting 8.5 to 9 hours a night when I was doing those. Like, you've pushed yourself so far, you need that sleep. And even on a everyday basis
Mm,
for all human beings. You don't even have to be athletes. Like, there is so much science behind that 8 hours a night. Get that 8 hours a night. And I know it's hard and it's easier to say than it is to do. But you've just got to prioritize it. Like you prioritize your work, your training, all that, because I think it just makes a massive difference. And yeah, so off that very little sleep, it was very tough. And I think you wake up, you feel real fatigue. The hardest one for me, I think, was 4 a.m.
oh,
on the Sunday. So what would have that been? That would have been, I think, run number 10. And then I run again at 8 a.m. Sunday, again at 12 p.m. Sunday, and then the last one at 4 p.m. But 4 a.m., that's obviously when most people are asleep. So you're in that quite deep fatigue state. And I remember I literally pulled up to the track. I was running with a friend. We ran that one around the Aths track. And I pulled up, jumped out of my car at 3:58, and we
wow.
had to go at 4 because we wanted to do the challenge properly. So, I didn't get a proper warm up in, and I was trying to get faster each run, so it wasn't not ideal. But I was that fatigued, I couldn't get up. Your alarm's ringing at 3:30 in the morning, but you've only gone to sleep at 1:30 in the morning. By the time you've tried to cool down and have a shower and eat after your 12 a.m. run, so you get to bed at 1:30 a.m., you sleep till 3:30, and you go again. It is mental. But anyone that's up for the challenge, I think as long as you've got that work
Yeah, don't
underneath
do
you,
that.
then I highly recommend doing it. Just be careful with the building pace. That wouldn't have been something that I would have done if I didn't have the years of experience underneath me. And I want to mention that because even
Oh,
afterwards, I pulled up worse from that than the 50 marathons in 50 days. So the level of fatigue from the 4x4 by 48, I couldn't train for 4 days.
yes.
Tying my shoelace felt like a massive task. It wasn't muscular fatigue, it was CNS fatigue. And so I think that is
Well, I mean,
a
it's
really
something
important
that
thing that
well,
people need to
I'll
consider
be
when it comes to
obviously
these
coming
sorts of
into
challenges.
with now with the lack of sleep is when we have the baby. It's gonna, that's one of the things that most parents they say the most is what kills you is the lack of sleep. And you most parents go grey because well, with grey hairs they get so fatigued because then you still have the cumulative stress of work and everything like that, and then you have to come home and then there's the newborn baby you have to keep alive, and there's that extra stress that adds up, and you it's like said central the CNS fatigue drives it down. It's almost
Yeah.
crazy how that's the hardest thing. With like you know you couldn't get back to training as quickly as you could after the 50 marathons in 50 days. It's wild because it's less, but it's the sleep that you missed out on is what affects the body from recovering, and that's why it's so important. Is there anything outside of that? Like, what's the
Yeah.
hardest race you've ever done?
Yeah. So true. Hardest race I've ever done.
Ah,
Probably the Bali Hope that I spoke about because I went there to win. I literally put it all on the line and ran as hard as I could, and thankfully did win. So look, it is a charity run, but it was me against me. I'm going to
Mhm.
push myself to my limits, and best I can be is something that I like. That's almost
Right.
my mantra. I've only got one tattoo. That's the one on my forearm. Best I can be, and yeah, I think that. Um, it's just really important to me. I feel like life is incredibly precious, and that was highlighted through the loss of my friend. And while I'm here, I want to chase my dreams, do all the things that I love, and be the best that I can be. And my goal is to help others chase theirs and be the best that they can be in whatever it is that they love to do, whatever field, just to achieve what is most meaningful to them. So I that race in Bali, yeah, I left it all out there. I was my next run was a week later. It was 2 kilometers. I was still sore. And I ended up running that 84 Ks in 8 hours, 13 minutes, which I think is about a 550
Mm.
average pace. But over that distance and 2,000 meters of elevation, the humidity of Bali, it was tough. But yeah, it was a race that I'll
It's
forever
one of the
cherish,
yeah. I
and
asked the
got
same
to meet
question
some
to
amazing
the other
people
ultra
and
marathon runner that I
raise a lot
know.
of money and
It's so
awareness along the
difficult
way.
because you're in a big field of people. How do you kind of prepare to like you're ultra competitive, right? So how do you go into a race with so many people and not be able to live with not coming first? That makes sense. Do you go in and say I'm just going to go on and beat my time and not worry about the end result?
Yeah, that's all you can do. Absolutely. I think, I did a run, 2 bays, 56K ultra earlier this year, and I was absolutely stoked. Could not wipe the smile off my face. It's a 56K run, which is about 1,400 meters of elevation through trail, and a lot of it's single trail. So it's not as if you're running on, like I find road running where you've got that concrete and you can, especially if you've got those amazing carbon plate
Mm.
shoes that everyone's got now, that feedback. Trail running is tough, and I did that in 5 hours 7 minutes. Came 16th out of about 250, and I was absolutely stoked. And I remember talking to another person after the run that day, and he was pretty upset. And he beat his previous time. He beat his personal best, but he didn't beat his friend that he expected to beat. And I just think it's such a dangerous
Mhm.
I guess, trap that people fall into, and it's really tough. Like you can't be any better than the best you can be, and so that's something that I live by. And I think on that day in Bali, for example, the best I can be happened to be winning that race, but in 2 days it happened to be coming 16th. In other races that I've done, it's coming 12th. Whatever it may be, I think as long as
Yeah,
you
that's
are
definitely
getting the
it's
best
hard
out of
well,
yourself,
hard from other
then
people.
I'm
Like
happy,
my
and I think
team sport
most runners
orientated
do live by
myself,
that.
and I do a bit of martial arts as well. There's always that one on one back to you competing against another opponent, and then you always want to get one up on that. When you've got I don't know how many people in that field, and it's such a open race, so many different levels of people that are racing in experience levels as well. And even on the day, like how good you are on that day can vary so much. It's very hard. So I guess if you go in with a specific goal, and even if you go in to beat that goal, you're a winner at the end of the day.
Mm.
Mm.
Absolutely. And because I think you could, like, if you keep training, you're going to level up, you're getting better and better, but then you're going to verse people who are at a high level. You may be a ultra runner, I guess while we're talking about running, that is dedicated, putting all the time that you have into that outside of work and family. But there may
Mm.
also be, you may be versing people in the field who that's their job. They're a sponsored professional ultra runner, and that's, how they earn a living. So if you get to that level where you're versing those sorts of people, it's sort of like, well, at the end of the day, we have very different lives, and I'm as long as I get the best out of myself with the time that I have available, then that's all you
Yeah.
can do. And so I think, I haven't really raced anyone like that yet, but I know that people that do progress to those extreme races, like UTMB and then races like that, that would definitely be a challenge I think a lot of people would face. But I think whether you're a tradie, or you're doing something more like a running coaching, which isn't as physical of a job, but it's still work
And I'm
compared
going to
to
move on to the one of
someone
my
that's a
favorite
full-time
questions I like to
athlete. It's a
ask
very
everyone. It
different
kind of puts
experience.
people on the spot, so don't be too concerned. It's if you were to have dinner with any four people, who would you choose, and where would you go? That can be yeah, you and four guests. That can be dead or alive.
Any four people. So me and four guests, dead or alive.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah. I know. I've heard of Tony
I
Robbins. Yep.
think I would say Tony Robbins. Do you know Tony Robbins? He is a Yeah, Tony Robbins had a profound impact on my life, and I think a lot of people may know Tony Robbins listening to this. A lot of people might not. He's not a runner, surprisingly, but I think he's helped me. He's helped me tap into that mindset of what's possible. It was I didn't mention it before, but in 2017, early 2017, before we went on to win the grand final, before I ran that first marathon, I was in a pretty tough period of my life and struggling after the loss of my
Right.
teammate. My mum took me over to America to see Tony Robbins, and it was a life changing experience, and truly did help me tap into a mindset of what's possible. So definitely Tony Robbins. I'd say Goggins. I think everyone loves Goggins, and the same sort of thing. I think has helped me see what's possible, and I think it would just be an amazing person to meet. And then my two
As well.
brothers, I'm very close with
And one of the
them. I want
craziest
them
things as
to
well, going back to
experience
when you lost
meeting
your
those
dear
boys as
friend,
well.
is that you're so young. You don't. Not a lot of people go through that when they are so young. They lose a friend that they hold so dear. Was that who did you kind of lean on? Like, was there you obviously you were struggling. Your mum knew obviously saw that you're struggling and able to go to see Tony Robbins. Did you feel alone in that stage? Like, it wasn't really someone you can kind of lean on and share that experience with?
Yeah, I think, I guess, because footy clubs are so tight, and that's what I do love about that footy club culture, or any team sport for that matter. We were all leaning on each other. I think we were all doing it tough, but we were all very open, vulnerable, and shared where we're at. I mean, that's just something that you never expect to happen, and you can't fathom how it can happen. So I think we were all just there to support each other, and it was catching up with your mates more frequently. Go for a kick, go for a run, get a coffee. Always call someone, and check in every day. So I think COVID taught people that, like, as hard as the lockdowns were, and especially in Melbourne, the amount of
Yeah.
people I saw on Facebook put a big smile on my face that would say, "Hey, if you can do anything today, just call one friend, because you don't know, who needs it right now." And it was just those sorts of things. I think we all came together, got that support from each other, and then my mum recognized that it was more so, when I say I was feeling really lost, like
Right.
outside of the feelings of sadness, which I could then connect with my friends, it was more, I felt a loss of direction, because all of a sudden you think, how can this happen? I'm 18 and this has happened. Like, could this happen to me? What if I went to bed and this happened? And you start to have that, I guess, fear and paranoia. And I just sort of felt really lost. When I feel that one of my strengths, and one of my, I guess, things I'm very grateful for, is that I've always had a really clear understanding of what I want. And that's why I think it's easier to go for them, because I've really scoped out what I want. And I think that we don't know the how. The how reveals itself along the way, but I know what I want and why I want it. And when I was in school, I was like, I literally left year 12, and I'm like, I'm gonna come back, be a PE and outdoor ed teacher. I'll be teaching at this school. I'll see you in 5 years after I've been at uni. I'm going to play footy for the Vermont Eagles for years to come. This is what I'm going to do. This is who I am. And when that happened, the loss of teammate, it was that real loss of direction. And I think going to Tony Robbins opened me up to a completely different mindset and what was possible. And he shared a story of a guy called
Wow.
Stu Middleman, who in like the early 2000s ran across America. And my mind was blown, because this guy was an ultra runner. He was running distances sometimes of up to 85 kilometers a day. And I just could not comprehend that. I didn't know that ultra running existed. I thought the furthest people run was a marathon. I was a footballer at the time. I'm sitting there thinking, this bloke is a predisposed genetic freak. And but one thing that Tony does is he does a fire walk at this Unleash the Power Within. So you have to walk barefoot across burning hot coals for 5 meters. And the I guess idea, the purpose behind that
Right.
is it's not about the fire walk, it's a metaphor. If you can actually walk
Mm.
across fire, then what else can you do? What else can you do with your life? And what limiting beliefs are holding you back? And as I said, then went back, played footy, found that I wasn't loving footy as much, believed in myself that I could run a marathon because I thought I ran a 15K fun run the year before. I've just heard a story earlier this year about a guy who ran across America. If he can do that, then I can run a marathon. And that sort of gave me the belief. And then that first marathon ultimately played out how it did, as I said, with the runner and the girl with the Zupa Duper, and it just made me fall in love with running. And so it's all connected. But I think, Tony Robbins has had such an impact on my life and impacts so many people that he'd be definitely one of my
Oh, that's
one
great.
of my guests
It's fascinating,
at the
like
dinner table.
especially around your life. There's always that little bit of part of someone's helped you, and then you're always willing to give that back. Like going back to that Melbourne marathon, and you're always going back to Zupa Duper's, the same spot where you received yours, and even you done charity fun runs, and you've raised a lot of money for charity as well with your running. Is that where you kind of connected back to? Always, it was always a sense of purpose and giving back to the community. Hmm.
Yeah, I think, I have done some races as well where there's no charity involved. It's just go and be the best you can and have fun. Which was, the Two Bays 56K that I spoke about earlier this year. That was just a race for me. I've done more races like that as well. But I think when I tend to do big campaigns and big events, I like to connect it to charity because I think we've all got, I truly believe that everyone's got something that they're strong at. And for some people, it's just trying to find that thing. And, I share that message in schools, like you will have something that you love and that you're good at. And if you haven't found it yet, that's okay. I didn't start running till I was 19. And look what I've done in the past 5 years. So I think that's a really important part of it. And yeah, as I said, something that I share with others. But mate, wait,
That's
I've
right. It's
actually. I hope you can edit
we
this
was
part
talking more
out.
about
I've
talking about
forgotten what you
giving
said
back
there.
to the community,
I've gone
and
on a
like
tangent.
your story of your life has always been around like the Tony Robbins. Will happens to the best of us, so it's all right. So
Oh
kind of
shit!
we'll
Sorry, mate.
start that beginning first. So your whole story, your one of the kind of connecting factor is always about giving back, especially about that story about that lady who gave you that Zupa Duper, and now you're always going back to that same point in that race and giving the Zupa Dupers out to the other racers. Sorry, is that like something that always big key factor for you about giving back to the community of racing?
Yeah, I think, well, for me, I think that I love running so much, and running is a strength of mine. And I think if you can connect what you love to do and what you're good at and use it to help others, then that's what you should do. Like, I truly feel that, I have this strength in me, which is running, and I love it so much. Then why wouldn't I use it to help other people? And especially if other people are inspired by what I do, then it just makes sense to connect it to charity. And I truly believe that everyone's got something that they're great at and that they love. And when they find that thing, then if you can use it to help others, well, we know that when we help
Mm,
others, it puts the other person in such an amazing mood. It also puts you in an amazing mood, and it's just the best thing you can do. So yeah, there's definitely races that I run where I don't have a charity involved. Sometimes it's just go out there, be the best I can, and race myself. But when I like to do big campaigns, I love to connect it to charity. And yeah, as I said, I think running is just my thing, and I love it so
mm.
much. If I'm
There's always
strong at
definitely
it, then
something
let's use
about
it for
giving
a good
back that
purpose.
gives.
Okay, cool. Oh yeah, so in terms of first 42K, that was it. I think, yeah, helping those people run their first marathon and that feeling was so special, and that's what made me want to take it to another level and help people with their own running. I've always loved to
Mhm.
inspire people to chase their dreams, and I've been working as a keynote speaker since 2019, which was really natural progression after the 50 marathons in 50 days. There were schools around my area that heard about it, that followed it and said, hey, come and tell your story. We want to inspire our students. So
Mm.
that's part of it too. But I think, yeah, running specifically and really helping people with their running, that was born out of COVID. And so as hard as COVID was, and, it was a tough time, not going to undermine that. I think, it also, there's positives if you look for them. And one was it gave me a lot more time with my family, which I cherish, and it also allowed me to build first 42K.
Moving on to the fun part is the accessories of running. How many pairs of running shoes do you go through?
It's a good question. I am very, very lucky, very fortunate. I'm sponsored by ASICS, so I've been an ASICS Australia ambassador for 2 years now, and so thankfully don't need to buy my shoes and have quite a lot of them. I think I've got currently about 20 pairs in my cupboard, and I rotate them depending on the session.
Jesus.
So if I'm doing a trail run, I've got ASICS trail
Yeah,
runners.
right.
If
Okay.
I'm doing a speed session, I've got, the Meta Speed Skies, or Meta Races, some fast shoes. If I'm doing a longer run, I'd go for more the glide rides, that more support and a little bit more
Mm.
cushioning. So yeah, very, very lucky. But I think on the Cairns to Melbourne run, which is so soon, I'll be having taking probably 6 or 7 pairs away for that 3,700 kilometers.
Yeah, wow. We spoke about that before the start of the podcast. Sorry, before the podcast started. Just want to give a bit of a lead into where that start or how that kind of came about and what you're racing for.
Yeah, so this run is Cairns to Melbourne, 3,700 kilometers. I'm calling it 60 for 60 for 60. And what that means is 60 kilometers on average per day for 60 days to raise $60,000 for Make a Wish. And this is a huge, huge journey I'm very excited for. And it's one that I've been ultimately training for since that first marathon. But I truly believe that I'm ready, and, the amount of work that I've got behind me, and for an amazing cause. I think I've gotten so clear on what I call my purpose in life. I truly believe my purpose is to help others chase their dreams and be the best they can be. And I think through me chasing my dream of doing this big run, I'll be helping sick children, Make a Wish kids, achieve what is most meaningful to them and achieve their dreams. And whether that is to get a puppy, whether that's to go to Disneyland, whether that's to run with their favorite AFL team, through us raising money and awareness, we'll be able to make that possible.
That's awesome. Is it all kind of the same? Like, how do you kind of strategize the race? Is it you kind of are you running the same pace, or is there certain periods you have to run faster or slower? And then maybe on that second question, do you like is there a route? Like, have you planned a route out, or is it something that you have to do on the go?
Yeah, we do have a route, definitely. And I guess strategy wise, it's all about breaking it down. So, I mean, something as big as that, it's not something. When I did the 50 marathons, it was go out, do it in 4 to 4.5 hours. Whereas this, I'll probably run 20K, stop in the motorhome. So I've got a motorhome with me, trailing behind me. Stop for 20 minutes, have
Okay.
a smoothie, have a
Yep.
rest, maybe, foam roll, then go again, and then stop, have lunch. And then, you might even have a little nap because
Mm.
you're so fatigued doing this day in, day out. And then you go again. And so, it'll be around 60 Ks average a day, but it'll be with lots of stops, lots of breaks through that period to be able to make it possible. And the route that we've got is, mostly the East Coast. So very excited. Like the first 25 days or so is just on the A1 from Cairns to the sunny coast, and then along the Gold Coast and around, right down the
Oh
East
wow.
Coast, and then even finishing running via like Merimbula, Pambula, and through Victoria that way. So all around the coast, and then Bairnsdale, Sale, Moe. I hope I'm pronouncing these towns right for anyone listening that is living there. And then, ultimately finishing back in Vermont. So finishing out the Vermont Football Club, which is, a very special place to me. It's where my running journey started, I guess, because that's where I grew, I guess, found so much inspiration through my teammates. So it's a place where people can gather. We can celebrate together. They can run, the last little bit with me if they like. But That's the plan. Finish there
Oh yeah,
and raise as much money and awareness as we can for Make a Wish.
that's awesome. I mean, I guess you've done so many of these big races before. You kind of that kind of gives you the confidence to go out and do this. Do you prepare mentally, like for an aspect where it's going to get challenging, and to kind of, I guess, visualize challenging moments in that race and push through 'em? Do you kind of see it that way, or do you picture it going smoothly and getting it done that way? That makes sense.
You have to visualize both. I mean, you want it to go smoothly, of course, but there's every chance you're
Mm.
going to get a quad tear on day 19. There's every chance that you have a foot injury, Achilles, whatever it may be. And then how do you manage that? What do you do? What's the, I guess, plan in that instance? So, it's visualizing the, I guess, outcomes that are possible is really important, whether they're positive or negative, and that way it's going to prepare you to be able to handle them in that moment. And I think, like we spoke about with Goggins and the cookie jar before, if you can already have that, I guess, mental edge by having visualized what may go wrong, it just prepares you to be able to handle it when something does go wrong. Because I think to put your body through 3,700 kilometers, I said before 2019, which was a big year for me, was 4,000 Ks for the year. That's 300 Ks more than what I'm attempting to do in 60 days. So when you break it down like that and you understand how big this is, I think, there's every chance that something's going to happen. No matter how much strength work
Yeah.
training you do beforehand, we're not invincible, and we're running, 420-kilometer weeks. Like, that is massive. So something may happen. And I think if you can prepare yourself for it, then you're just better able to keep going when the going gets tough.
Are you doing any kind of like a live stream or a live tracker? So if people at home are tuning in, can tune in to see how far you're running or how fast you're going or where you are. Is there any way to track it?
We're gonna have live tracking, I think, available to support crew only at this stage. It's something I'm still talking to, like all the. So we had to get permits from Vic Roads, New South Wales Roads, Queensland Roads, all that, and the police as well. So
Oh, yeah,
something we'll
yeah.
talk to them about. But yeah, I think it will be on Strava. People can see the run at the end of the day once it's uploaded. We'll be posting on social media every single day
Oh,
as
yeah.
well.
Yeah, so the best place to follow you would probably be on your Instagram, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, Instagram. So that's just Sean Bell __. But if you search my name, it should come up.
Oh, perfect. That's awesome. That's crazy. Your name and underscore. That's it on Instagram. So lucky. Not even I can get that.
Yeah, well, I tried to get Sean Bell, but I couldn't. Someone already had that. So anyway, Sean Bell __. But if you search Run for Wishes as well, it will come up as well.
Right, which is awesome. And before we finish off the podcast, I'm sure you might have seen from other ones, we've got Uncle Frank's final question of the day or of the podcast, and we've changed it up. So I'm not sure if you've listened to some of the older ones, these newer ones. He's got a whole bunch of questions in a hat, and I'm going to pick one out, or I'll shuffle them up and I'll pick one out and I'll ask you that question. How does that sound?
Sounds great. I'm excited.
All right.
Haven't done
All right.
anything
I'm
like this
picking
before.
one. It's all right. These ones aren't that bad. I won't put you on the spot too much. All right. Ready? Oh, this is good.
Yeah.
This hasn't been asked before. If you could switch lives with any one person for a day, who would you choose and why?
I reckon Hugh Jackman, just because he is the GOAT. I love Hugh
Oh,
Jackman. I think anyone that can act, sing, dance, do it all like Huey can. And he's also just, you can see he's just a real gentleman and family man. So that's something I admire and love about him. And yeah, I'm a big Hugh Jackman, Greatest Showman fan to any of the listeners out there who like a musical as well.
yeah, He is. Almost forget how he's a musician and he's an actor, but he does plays as well. Like he's a very multifaceted actor.
It's everything, isn't it? Yeah, just a special guy.
All right, mate. So one last time before we close off the podcast, where can we find you? How can we support your Run for Wishes, and where can we find the was it the first 42K, your business?
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, mate. So if you want to follow me on Facebook and Instagram as Sean Bell, if you search my name, it will come up. That's SEAN for Sean, by the way. And with Run for Wishes, if you'd like to donate to Make a Wish, that's runforwishes.com.au. And if you'd like to run your first 5K, 10K, half marathon or marathon and get that coaching and support from experts, well, we are at first42k.com.au. So, mate, thanks so much for giving me the opportunity to come on here and share my story and hopefully give some inspiration to other people out there, not just runners, but people to go and chase their dreams in whatever field they are in.
No worries, mate. I appreciate you 100%, and I'm sure that anyone will be able to get something out of this podcast. So thank you very much again, and thanks everyone for listening to the show.
Thanks, Matt.